Prof-It is brought to you by StopToShop.com, your ultimate source for Pokemon singles, tins, boxes, and cards from a variety of other games too. Type in the coupon code PROFIT in caps with a dash, and you'll sweeten the deal with a 10% discount on your full order. If you're looking for cards, make the stop at Stop to Shop. Hey Prof-It fans, and welcome to this week's episode of Prof-It. Now, I know most of you guys are probably expecting an episode where I foreshadow the top decks that are going to perform at City Championships. However, as I got about halfway through my script, I realized that it was almost the exact same thing that I've written for the top decks that performed at Battle Roads. And if you go back to that list, you'll see the decks. I'm going to say that almost all those decks are going to perform just exactly the same as they did. Now, that might be a pretty bold prediction on my part, but that's just how I see the format going out. Now, some decks like Machamp and Gyarados might do a little bit better than they've placed at the top Battle Roads chart, but it wasn't enough to write a whole new episode about it. Some surprise decks like Mew Prime, Magnezone, and Nidoking, they'll definitely be good decks, but I don't think they'll be played enough to see their way at the top decks of all time for City Championships. I might be wrong, but that's my prediction so far. So instead, I decided to do a deck analysis. Now at first I was going to do Arceus, but I think I need to test with the deck a little bit more before I talk about it. So instead, today's episode is Charizard. Hope you guys like it. Check it out. Charizard, while also being one of the most iconic Pokemon of all time, is the last speed deck that offers an engine that's anything close to what we were used to last year with Claydol. Ninetales from Heart Gold Soul Silver allows you to discard a fire energy from your hand in order to draw 3 cards. While this isn't quite as good as Claydol, and that you might not be able to get the draw working each turn, it can be better because it allows you to build up your hand size much larger than 6 cards. In conjunction with this consistent draw, Charizard is no slouch himself. His Pokebody, Fire Formation, allows you to do 10 more damage from each of your attacks for every fire Pokemon that you have in your bench. With a full fire bench, Fire Wing does 80 damage for 1 fire energy, even outperforming the damage caps for Kingdra Prime and Donphan for 1 energy. If you get 3 energy on Charizard, you deal 130 damage with Burning Tail, enough to one-shot most popular Pokemon in our format. At 140 HP, he's far outside the one-hit knockout range of most Pokemon too. The water weakness could be trouble against certain metagames, but the fighting resistance is a great one to have. Altogether, I'd argue that Charizard is a very under-tested card, with a lot of potential to be explored. Here's a skeleton to get you started. The 1 Uxie LA might seem out of place because he's not a fire type, but having 1 for insurance and saving a bad hand is a good idea. The shiny Vulpix also might be a bit harder to get for a deck, but to be able to grab 2 fire energy with a 0 energy attack is just too good to pass up. Most of the other cards don't really require an explanation, so let's work on tackling those 11 free spaces. No matter what, you're going to have to find a way to deal with the fact that Ninetales forces you to discard your fire energy to give you draw power. There are 2 ways of going about this. The first is including a 2/2/2 Typhlosion Prime line from Heart Gold Soul Silver. Typhlosion's Pokepower Afterburner lets you attach a fire energy from your discard pile to a Pokemon, then you put 1 damage counter on. Trust me, the 1 damage counter is well worth the extra energy. With Typhlosion, you can attach 2 to 3 energy a turn, allowing you to get multiple Charizard set up with Burning Tail pretty quickly. You can always attack with Typhlosion too in times of trouble, and he's pretty interesting with the ability to discard your opponent's energy. If you go the Typhlosion route, the 3/2/3 Charizard line should work just fine. The second option for recovering fire energy is using a handful of different trainer and supporter cards to get your fire energy back. The big card most people use is Fisherman, which lets you take 4 energy from your discard pile to your hand. Cycling energy like this either allows you to attach energy that you've discarded later, or just use them again with Ninetales to draw more cards. Some people might like Energy Restore as well, which is a much weaker card than Fisherman, but it's a trainer, which means that you don't have to waste your supporter for the turn. It lets you flip 3 coins and return an energy for each heads. Chances are that Fisherman is probably the better play, but Restore is at least worth considering. The last card you can look at for this is Energy Pickup, which lets you attach an energy from the discard pile if you hit heads on a coin flip. This works as a pseudo-replacement for Typhlosion. If you go the non-Typhlosion route, I'd probably increase your Charizard line to a 4/2/4. If you want my opinion, I think Typhlosion's the way to go. He helps increase your odds of having more fire Pokemon in play, and he also really speeds up how quickly you can attack with Burning Tail. Now, for teching the deck out. To add to your consistency, you might want to consider an additional 1/1 line of Ninetales. 2/2 should be your bare minimum, and increasing your line isn't a bad play at all. You should also consider increasing the amount of Surge and Speed cards that you play. Extra Broken Time Space, Pokemon Collector, and Rare Candy could all help you get a fast setup as quickly as possible. Another alternative for draw that I've seen used to some success is using multiple copies of Unknown R. Unknown R's Retire Pokepower lets you discard him and then draw a card. This makes a pretty reliable draw that can be searched out with your Pokemon collectors as well as other cards. Because you discard him, he doesn't decrease your potential with Fire Formation either. The only thing I don't like about Unknown R is starting with him. As far as power goes, Charizard already hits extremely heavily, and it might not even be worth it dedicating extra slots when you already do so much damage. You can't use Crobat G like in most decks because he hurts your Fire Formation potential. If you have decks in your metagame that you feel that you could one-shot instead of two-shot with a little more power, consider Plus Power or X-Repel. With Charizard's high HP and high speed, using Super Scoop Up to pick him up and then reset him with Broken Time Space is a no-brainer. You could also consider using Triumphant Seeker to increase your chances with this effect. While Charizard has a 3 retreat cost, which seems pretty high, retreating him isn't as big of a deal with the Typhlosion setup because you're attaching 2 to 3 energy a turn. Just retreat Charizard to a new one, Seeker up your heavily damaged Charizard from the bench, and start attaching energy with Typhlosion. At 140 HP, just healing 1 or 2 times against your opponent could be too much for them to catch up to you. And one last card that I would consider trying is Pokemon Reversal, which gives you the power of Luxray X's Bright Look on a coin flip. Being able to pull up a crucial Pokemon on the bench and hitting them for over 100 damage could be enough to completely cripple your opponent's setup. As far as the matchups go, they're really not too bad. Obviously with a water weakness, Gyarados and Kingdra could be some trouble, but even then, Kingdra can't one-shot you, and you have the potential to one-shot both of them. It's not a favorable matchup, but it's not quite an auto-loss either. Bilegar could be trouble with his ability to limit your trainers though. You'll probably want to be careful about how many times you use Ninetales in your game to draw. A handful of too many trainers will give Gengar the ability to come close to one-shotting you. Dialga is an interesting matchup. Dialga GX can shut off your important body, but he's also fire weak. Unless they can level up and get Dialga GX to the bench in one turn, you should be able to hold your own. Even if they do hit the bench, you can always use a teched Pokemon Reversal to bring them up and take the knockout with Burning Tail. Otherwise, your matchups across the board are pretty solid. Charizard's fighting resistance makes him a great contender against Donphan and Machamp, and the rest of the decks in the metagame shouldn't give you too much trouble. I think that what makes Charizard the most appealing is just his simplicity. He's easy to pick up and learn, and he's really inexpensive too. There's a new blister promo that just came out that gives you a 1/1/1 Charizard line in glass hollow foil, and it also comes with a booster pack for about $5. You can also get Typhlosion Prime as a tin promo from StopToShop.com for just $1.99. Compared to the high cost of the SP engine and their level X's, Charizard probably only costs about 1/3 as much as SP decks. It's definitely worth your time to test. So, as you guys can tell, Charizard has some pretty good potential, and he might find his way into the top tables for some city championship events. Next week is going to be a huge week. Not only is it the week of Thanksgiving, but that weekend is the first weekend of city championships. I'll be at most of the city championship events in the Illinois-Wisconsin area, so if you're going to one of those, look out for me. As always, thanks for watching Prof-It, and good luck at cities. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.